All right, Proverbs chapter 22. We were driving here this morning, and I was talking with the girls, and I said, okay, I've got one of three lessons. There's this lesson, there's another lesson, a third lesson. I said, y'all pick the one you want to hear. And they picked this one, which is train up a child. So, anybody besides me remember the David Letterman show? Top 10 things? David Letterman, top 10? No? Yes? All right. We're going to do the top 10 things. So, Proverbs chapter 22 and in verse 6, it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So let's deal with that first. That word train, there's only two places in the Bible that you really see that. Okay, so one of them is here, and it's train in that tense, and the other one is in Genesis 14, where it says Abraham trained 313 servants in his own household to go to war. It's the only place you'll see the word trained. I can tell you that the 313 is significant because of some gematria and stuff like that, but basically trained, discipled, practiced, rehearsed. He taught them. And here we get an indication that God expects parents to train children. Train does not mean just let them grow up in the house. Train does not mean let the school teach them. Train does not mean let society teach them. Train does not mean let your grandparents teach them. This is a direction to parents, mom and dad, to train up your children. In Roman society, if you didn't educate your children, you could be put in jail for it. So this is a serious commandment. And you say, well, how do I know that? Well, if you look back in Psalm 78, you don't have to go there. Actually, go to Deuteronomy 6. I'll read this one. It says, and these words which I command thee this day shall be in your heart. You'll teach them diligently unto your children. Talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, when you rise up. You'll bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they'll be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them upon the post of your house and on your gates. Is that pretty clear instruction? And if you're not sure about that, you can look at Psalm 78, where it says, for he established a testimony in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them. The children who would be born, that they may arise and declare them to their children, and that they may set their hope in God, and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and may not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that did not set its heart aright, and whose spirit was not faithful to God. So God's pretty serious about this. Train your kids. And this is as a result of generation after generation that has not done this. Not done this in America, not done this in other countries. There are a lot of problems that have come up from it. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. We'll spend time on what you should do. So, top 10 things. The first 5 things are attitudes that you should teach your children to have. They're mental choices, ways of thinking, character traits, all right? The last 5 are going to be things that they should do. So the first 5 are things that they should think and how they approach the world, and the second 5 are things that they should do. Make sense? Now, the way this proverb is constructed is train up the child in a way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Literally means when they have whiskers. Train them up, and when they're mature, they won't depart from it. So what do? Go up to verse 1. So you're going to see that these are kind of bookends. The first 5 are attitudes, the last 5 are actions. So the first one is, a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favor rather than silver or gold. The first thing to teach our children is that their name matters. Their reputation matters. Your mama was right. Reputation matters. A good name. That the actions that you take reflect upon your life. And people see that. and you have a reputation. You are known for a certain thing. And this implies that people you choose to be around, the actions you choose to take, are all a reflection of who you are. And God says that your name is more important than great riches. To choose that. So if I've got a choice between my reputation and my name or money, which should I choose? My reputation, my name, your personal honor. Louis L'Amour says that honor is a gift that a man gives himself. And that's what we're talking about here is honor. It says loving favor rather than silver or gold. I can tell you right now that if you choose silver and gold, they can go away. But if you have the favor of someone, the favor of a king, the favor of someone in charge, that's different than being wealthy. In other words, riches go away. Don't choose money. Choose honor. Choose action. Okay? That's number one. Number two, the rich and poor have this in common: the Lord is maker of them all. In other words, don't esteem people different. Just because they're rich doesn't mean they're special, or they're smart, or they're a better person, or they're more noble. And just because they're poor doesn't mean they're smarter, or dumber, or more noble. When I was a kid, a lot of people took great pride in the fact that they weren't rich, that they were poor. And I don't think there's any nobility in poverty. I don't think there's any nobility in wealth either. That's just a scorecard for how much you can utilize capitalism. So what? It says here that God makes them both, the rich and the poor. That also tells you something. God makes the rich and the poor. It says, it implies esteem them the same. People are people. Treat people the same. I tell my daughters, you can really evaluate a young man based on how he treats someone that doesn't matter to him. Watch how he treats the waiter. Watch how he treats the waitress. Watch how he treats the janitor. Watch how he treats someone with whom he doesn't need anything. It tells you a great deal about that person. Number three, a prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. What this tells your kids is have a plan. Don't just walk into something. Think about it. You are expected to think. You're expected to think your way through something. Think about the consequences. Think about conclusions. Think. I see a lot of kids that just walk into something. Wait a minute. Stop. What's going to happen if you do that? Now, it's easy for me to stand here at 50 years old and tell you that, because if I were to show you 15-year-old me, not so much. So some of that is wisdom. Some of that is experience. And I wish and I hope that my kids learn from heeding my word, and watching things, but sometimes you don't. However, have a plan. Think it through. A prudent man looks at it and thinks, this might happen. Number 5, by humility and the fear of the Lord are riches and honor and life. Think about that. If you want riches and honor and life, it starts with humility in front of God and the fear of God. And the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So in other words, what your children should have is teach them the fear of the Lord and humility. Humility is just assessing yourself correctly. Not too high, not too low. And that can go either way, guys. You can be very proud. You can be over proud. But you can also self-deprecate too far. Oh, I'm just not. Moses did that. God said, I want you to go get my people out of Egypt. Oh, I can't talk. But Paul says of Moses that he was eloquent of speech. And he was a powerful man. He was an engineer and a mathematician. But by the time he spent 40 years in the desert, he's become too humble. And God describes him and says he's the most humble person that ever lived. He had kind of come this far. So it's assess yourself correctly. Those are the 5 attitudes you should have. Now, what are the 5 actions you should do? This is below the verse. And the first one is, the rich rules over the poor and the borrower is servant to the lender. This is an important principle. It's the first one. It's simply this. Don't do debt. No credit cards. No installment. When I was in the Army, and they would let us off the base, typically at that time we'd get on a bus and we'd head over to, this is Fort Benning, Georgia, Peachtree Mall, or in Fort Lewis, Washington, we would go to the mall there in Tacoma or downtown Seattle, and you get off the bus, and I mean, the people in the mall, they see these military guys coming from miles away. And, you know, come on in, you can get, one of my friends, he bought Kodak, it was a plan, Kodak film for life. $600. But wait, 12 installment plans of $50 a piece. This is 1987. 1987. And $50 a month for 12 months, and you get film for life. Raise your hand the last time you bought film for your camera. What? I know y'all have I know you have a Kodak 110. I call that the grandmother camera. Be still.
Film for it anymore.
Can't get film anymore, can you? No, it's all digital. $50 a month, 12 months, $600. It's an installment plan. Installment plans, credit cards, debt. There are only 2 types of debt that you should take on. Debt that produces equity and none. What is,
go with that.
Lance, what is debt that produces equity? You ready? House. That's it. Car is a depreciating asset. The second you buy it, you drive it off the lot, it is worth half what you paid.
I know.
You go, well, I have to have a car. You're right, you have to have a car. Save up. Have your kids save up. Debt. The rich rules. It doesn't say the rich is better than the poor. It says the rich rules over the poor. If you teach your children, if they want to be ruled over, if they want to be a slave, get a credit card. Take on debt. Well, I don't like that. Good. Learn how to do cash. Learn how to save. That's one of the most important things you can teach your children to do. Second one. He who sows iniquity will reap sorrow, and the rod of his anger will fall. This one's directed directly at me. I can withstand almost all temptation. Doesn't bother me, except mischief. I cannot, if I have an opportunity to cause mischief, I will cause mischief. Just because I just enjoy it. I'm mischievous. I'll play practical jokes. I'll stir it up. I'll cause a problem. I don't care if it's on Facebook. That's why I'm not on Facebook anymore. I just can't, because I just cause mischief. I'm going to cause a problem. But it says here, whoever sows iniquity reaps sorrow. If you're causing trouble, if you're sowing wickedness, if you're doing bad things, you're going to reap sorrow. Have you ever played around and gone wrong? Yeah. And what it really says, but let's look at the words there, so let me be careful here. It says sows iniquity, and iniquity is wickedness, sin, doing something that's sinful, doing something that's troublesome. It's not a joke or something. I'm kind of joking about that. This is serious here. Whoever sows iniquity reaps sorrow. What about gossip? Is that gossip? Let me ask you a question. If God forgives your sin, is it forgotten? If God forgives your sin, if he looks at your entire life and he says, you're forgiven, is it forgotten? Absolutely. It says as far as the east is from the west, it is forgotten. It is in the sea. Now listen to me. If you don't hear anything else I say today, you need to hear this. Don't go fishing in somebody else's sea of forgetfulness. When God buries that in the sea of forgetfulness and you go into their sea and you start fishing, whatever fish you pull up, you're going to eat. And if you don't believe that, look at President Trump. How many times have they tried to take that man down by going into his sea of forgetfulness that's between him and God, has been forgiven, and they try to dig something up, and the second they do, they get to eat that fish. Your mama was right. Crow tastes better with salt. He's not going to get impeached. Let me tell you right now, because they're fishing in the sea of forgetfulness. And that's what gossip is. You go digging up somebody else's trouble, something that they've dealt with that's under the blood of Jesus Christ. You go digging that up and try and defame them with it or cause a problem with it. You're going to eat that fish. You can take that to the, you can take that to the bank. I'm glad there's somebody filming me on that today. Here's another one. He who has a generous eye will be blessed, but he who gives of his bread to the, for he gives of his bread to the poor. A generous eye will be blessed. This is an action you need to teach your children. Be generous. That's a hard one, because children by their very nature understand mine. Mine, 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 mine. You want to watch that? Give 2 kids a toy. Give 2 2-year-olds a toy. When someone tells me, oh, children are just innocent and they don't have any sin, hand 2 2-year-olds a toy. 1 toy, not 2, 1. A watch. Mine. Teach them generosity. Teach them to give. Teach them to give bread to the poor. Teach them to give, to look for opportunities to give. Why? I want my kids to be blessed. And when I tell them, when you're generous, you will be blessed. Who's that saying? Is that Dad saying that? No, that's Big Daddy saying that. He who loves purity of heart and has grace on his lips, the king will be his friend. This one right here, teach your kids that what they say matters. What you say matters. Be careful. If you have grace on your lips and forgiveness on your lips, and you say good things and you encourage people, and you do that type of stuff, guess what? It says the king's going to be your friend. Also says that when you say something nasty about the king, that in a private room, he'll still hear it. Still gets back to him. Tell you what, I don't know how many times I've said something dumb and it's gotten back to the person that it shouldn't get back to. You know how many times that's happened? Everybody say 100%. 100% of the time. Yep. I've said it. The eyes of the Lord preserve knowledge, but he overthrows the words of the faithless. Have faith. Have faith, have faith, have faith. It is important to train your children. It is important to train your grandchildren. It says that all manner of foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. It's not bad. That's just the nature of being a kid. And what we have to do is train them. And train them is to teach them. It is to rehearse it. It is to say it when we rise up. It is to say it when we lie down. It is to say it when we're on the way. It is to constantly show them and teach them. I would also tell you that these 10 things that you should train your children in, you should demonstrate them. Because it's much easier to say, do as I say, not do as I do. You should practice do as I do. And that goes for me as well. So I hope that encourages you today. If you have any questions, let me know. And once again, after we finish, we're going to do a couple more worship songs after we finish today. If we could just line up over there and just wait. Let us get everything out, talk, visit with each other. And when we get everybody in there, we'll go ahead and take care of it. All right? Y'all have a great week.